Hi, good afternoon. It's Sean Cardinale here at KSPC with day 5 of Life in Quarantine. Before we get to our regular news, I want to thank Catherine McGill of the NMBHOC for advising I clean up, get my afro tightly coiffed, trim my beard, and become more presentable. It's good to know that in times of crisis, someone can always be there to tell you to wash your ass. So as a result of our conversation, I'm sitting here in a monkey suit, but with no pants on. I've been sleeping like a baby lately, which is weird because I never sleep. Perhaps that's because I feel particularly cared for and held during this crisis, and I'll explain more about that in a moment. I think that when we check in on one another, and we do for one another as we would like done for ourselves, then obviously a sense of peace comes over us, and especially in particularly anxious times like these. Here are the ways I felt held yesterday and today. Yesterday, some news came down the pike from Netflix and from the health department. They called and reached out to all of us on the show where we had an acknowledged positive coronavirus test. And so I'm just grateful for the interaction with both the studio and state folks who called and reached out, checked up on me, checked up on my fellow crew members about our state. And by the end of the conversation, left like three numbers and also text, I think like an email chain or something was going to come out. But either way, again, really positive and interactive situation with both of those groups, especially for the Department of Health. I'm glad that we can be in a state where the politicians and the bureaucrats and the health officials can all work together and really move forward through this crisis. So it's amazing that that can happen. It's amazing what you can do when you can tamp out these sort of viral fires with some good, solid information and good communication between different departments and groups of people and politicians and health officials again, and make good policy decisions based on that. And so I'm grateful. In related news, a close crew member friend of mine on the show is very ill, and I'm sending her prayers and energy. I've offered to send food deliveries. Thankfully, she was given that hotline information I just spoke to you about from the Department of Health, and is awaiting the results of the test I think she received just today. I don't want to name her because that's still kind of odd, and there's still this sort of shame that happens when people get ill or in scenarios like this, like you feel bad that you got sick, which is absurd. The virus doesn't discriminate. The virus doesn't, it just does what it does. It goes around and attaches itself to people, and it doesn't matter who you are or what the situation is. So there's no popularity contest with viruses. They just go out and do what they do. So I hope she's all right. If anyone wants to talk to me online or knows of whom I'm speaking, then that's fine. But again, I'll send prayers, and I'm trying to find ways to see if Uber Eats or any of these other delivery companies will still be delivering, considering the circumstances. I actually don't know, so I should have found that out before I got to the air here. I've had a bunch of personal calls from friends the last few days, and what is really interesting is that someone with whom I am completely disconnected sociopolitically, and for those of you who know me know that that is a big deal of mine, that I'm very vocal on my politics, but this old hometown friend, Eddie, reached out and wants to talk sometime, and air our differences. And I don't know if this was because of the current circumstances or not, but I'm grateful, Eddie, and I did offer for us to sit down sometime in Stockton, California, and have a beer and perhaps some constructive conversation instead of the fire that we've thrown at each other before in the past can come of it. And if it doesn't, that's fine. I'm not holding my breath. Neither of us is going to convert one another's views. But again, just to see the humanity in one another, because as I've always said, we're all children of God, and especially in times like these, we can remember that. And so again, I'm grateful that he, among many people, reached out, and I don't know if it has to do with the quarantine or anything, but either way, it was to me an auspicious thing. And hopefully, when this is all done, 6 to 8 months from now, we can sit down and chop it up. And if we can't talk about politics, there's always the weather. So, what else? I hope my parents are doing well. They're not particularly old, having had my 46-year-old ass when they were only 22 and 24, but they are in the vulnerable age range for the coronavirus, and it doesn't sound like right now they are heeding the advice of the news, the health officials, the state officials, etc. So my father is particularly immune compromised, and I'm just like, please go home, stay home, stock up, because if Fox News heads like Newt Gingrich, Sean Hannity, and Laura Ingraham can flip-flop and realize, oh crap, this is a really serious situation in the last week or so, then so can you folks. So please don't listen to Devin Nunes. Just stock up, take care of yourselves, and we can weather this all the next couple of weeks. And what are they saying? Flatten the curve. Everyone wants to flatten the curve. I do want to give a shout out also to small business owners like my ex-wife and so many thousands of people in this community, much less millions across the country, who are definitely feeling the heat of this crisis. It looks like the Senate is getting it together finally for some relief, and that's great. I know that the idea of small business loans are frustrating to a lot of these folks because it's like they're getting loans against money that they didn't have or weren't going to anyway because of the societal shutdown. But it looks like there is some kind of package coming down the pike from the Senate, and I hope that that helps. And I do want to say specifically small business owners, because again, because of my politics, I'm usually out there like fighting for the proletariat, for the worker, and the workers need that too, of course, but so do the people who are paying them and paying themselves and giving everyone a livelihood and a place to work and food on the table. So we all need help right now. Along those lines of positivity, just like the last song of the Prince album I listened to yesterday called Love Sexy, came out in 1987? 87. Yep. In fact, rapping to Alphabet Street on Love Sexy, a quick aside here that is not on my script in front of me, rapping to Love Sexy, the 1987 Prince album, was how I met one of my best friends, Al Sumikial, who we now call Ninong, which is Tagalog for Godfather. He is my son Macario's godfather. He didn't know how to rap that rap at the end of Alphabet Street. I did. I shared it with him. Didn't even know him. We were just hanging out at St. Mary's High School 30 years ago. God. And anyway, that's how I got one of my best friends in life. So, yay, Love Sexy album. Anyway, positivity. I'm hearing that a lot of sports owners, sports team owners are trying to help out their staff. Speaking of businesses helping one another and owners helping, their not franchise, their hourly employees. So it looks like, janitors, concession folks, other workers, ushers, people without whom these amazing sports events that we attend, without those people, these events couldn't even happen. They're going to get some help too. So Mark Cuban, Dallas Mavericks owner, looks to be trying to help non-salaried employees. Joe Tsai, the Brooklyn Nets, is working on a plan to do the same. And Keith Love is Cleveland Cavaliers forward. He donated $100,000 to help out the event staff and the hourly workforce employees, and that's awesome. We're just keeping it all positive and or trying to anyway. Some little sarcastic political sides, but I'm doing what I can. Derek Chavez, shout out to Derek Chavez, who is probably freaking out right now that I'm even speaking about sports, because I'm totally out of my element when I speak about them, but I'm doing it anyway because, again, I want to share positivity. I wonder if some folks in Derek and my livelihood, work arena, work environment, TV, movies, production, I wonder if some wealthy folks like Mark Cuban, but in TV and movies, can do the same. Let's beat that drum a little bit, huh? How cool would it be for, say, Oprah, Jeff Bezos, Jeffrey Katzenberg, Steven Spielberg, James Cameron, or Tyler Perry to maybe work with IATSE or some of the other unions, or just form, in-kind, sort of donation foundations for this process? What an idea! Because guess what? Riggers, grips, PAs, prop assistants, any kind of someone who has a little assistant after the name, they're not falling back on much by and large. We're all freelancers and we go show to show. And so hopefully if the public sector, if government can't remember or can't find a way to get some relief for those folks through one of these bailout packages or help packages, then perhaps the private sector can, I mean, if it's good for the White House to lean on the private sector, then it can be good for, again, Oprah, Jeff, and the others. So let's see. I'm almost wrapping up here. Last note about giving up on a smaller but important scale. Again, trying to keep it positive. Good news today. I listened to NPR and I heard that customers at Coach's Bar and Grill in Columbus, Ohio, tipped $2,500 to the wait staff on a $30 meal. That's freaking awesome. Likewise, a couple eating at a Houston's restaurant called Irma's, they left a $9,400 tip for the staff there. Amazing what a crisis can do to bring out our better angels. Thank God for those folks who left that money for those wait staffs. And that's the good shit. That's what we need. That's what this situation is going to take. Thanks again to everybody for your well wishes. Thanks for Catherine for having me clean up. I'm still asymptomatic. I'm probably going to stay here a third week because what I'm finding out about this virus, whether I'm blogging or not, but I'm probably going to stay on lockdown for a third week, because how shitty would that be to step outside on day like 15 or 16 and then find out that I'm symptomatic like that day or the 16th or whatever. So the window is a little longer or shorter. These are averages that we're talking about in the news. So considering staying a third week, we'll find out what happens by the end of next week. Thanks again for listening. And I can't promise I won't be wearing pants tomorrow. It might be another pantless day, but I'll have some more news then. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.